The biopsy results are in, and they changed everything. I want to tell you what the doctor said and how I'm feeling right now, but a quick note, I'm just sharing my experience, not medical advice. Well, the result is no cancer detected. I'm relieved. Honestly, I'm a little stunned too. After weeks of waiting, my mind, it was bracing for the worst. I had already played out the what if scenarios 100 times. What if it was cancer? What if it was aggressive? What if my life as I know it had to stop on a dime? But instead, I got good news. Here's exactly what happened at the appointment. I met with the physician's assistant. I had that same knot in my stomach I'd been carrying for weeks, the kind of nervous energy where you feel both tired and wired at the same time, like your body is stuck in fight or flight. We sat down and she opened up the chart. And for a split second, I tried to read her face before she even spoke. Have you ever done that? You try to get ahead of the words by watching their expression. Finally, she said, well, the biopsy shows no malignancy, no cancer. Just like that, 3 words. No cancer detected. And the weight I'd been carrying in my chest, it was like someone opened a valve. I could finally exhale. The finding was clear. Benign. Now, let me back up a little bit here, because if you've never been through this process, you may not realize how brutal the waiting can be. It's not just the test. It's the days, sometimes weeks after the test, where your brain runs laps around every possible outcome. For me, it started months ago with the routine PSA test. For those who don't know, PSA stands for prostate-specific antigen. It's a blood test that looks for elevated levels that might suggest something's off with the prostate. It's not a perfect test, but it's the first sign doctors use to decide further testing is needed. My PSA had come back higher than normal, not sky high, but high enough to raise eyebrows. The kind of number that doesn't necessarily mean cancer, but definitely means, let's check this out further. So that led to an MRI. And the MRI suggested something worth investigating, which meant a biopsy. And let me tell you, the word biopsy is one of those words that hits like a sledgehammer. So there I was, waiting for the results of this biopsy, trying to go about my normal routine, trying not to overthink, but you can't help it. It's like there's a little voice in your head whispering, what if this is it? What if your life just split into before and after? And now, finally, I had the answer. No cancer! What this means for me is regular monitoring. Every 6 months, I'll have blood tests to track my PSA levels. No treatment needed right now, just consistent follow-up. Now that's the plan. Feels like a huge weight off my shoulders, and I'll be honest, waiting for those future test results, it's still going to carry some anxiety because once you've been on this ride, you're never able to go back to that carefree. There's always that little shadow of what if in the background. The good news is I don't need surgery. I don't need radiation. I don't need to change everything about my daily life. I just need to show up, stay on top of it, and be proactive. And that is a gift. Now, if you're going through this too, I want to share a few practical tips for you. First, always bring someone to appointments. When you're in the hot seat listening to news that could change your life, your brain only captures about half of what's said. Having another set of ears is invaluable. Second, record or take notes. Some doctors don't mind if you ask to record the conversation, but at the very least, jot things down because you'll forget details when the adrenaline is flowing. Third, ask for copies of your reports. Every scan, every test, every lab result. Keep them because sometimes you'll want a second opinion. Or you'll go see a new doctor, and having your own file saves a ton of time. And finally, don't let anyone rush you into a decision even if the news is bad. You almost always have time to think, to weigh options, to ask questions. Doctors may see cases like yours every day, but this is your one life. Take the time you need. Now, this has been heavy, not just for me, but for my family. When you go through something like this, it's not just your body, it's everyone who loves you. They're carrying the weight right alongside you. Now, as I've leaned on family, that helped a lot. Just being able to say, I'm scared out loud. It makes the fear lose a little of its grip. So if you're struggling, reach out to someone you trust, a family member, close friend, or even a professional. There's no prize for doing this alone. I'll link support resources in the description because sometimes the hardest part is not the test itself, but the quiet moments afterward, the waiting, the uncertainty, the late night Google searches that you wish you hadn't done. This has been heavy, not just for me, but for my family. When you go through something like this, it's not just your body, it's everyone who loves you. They're carrying the weight right alongside you. I've leaned on family, and that helped a lot. Hey, just being able to say out loud, I'm scared, it makes the fear lose a little of its grip. If you're struggling, reach out to someone you trust, a family member, a close friend, or a professional, because there's no prize for doing this alone. I'm going to link support resources in the description, because sometimes the hardest part is not the test itself, but the quiet moments afterward, the waiting, the uncertainty, and the late night Google searches that you wish you hadn't done. Now let me be clear. Even though my results came back benign, this whole experience has been a wake-up call, a reminder that health is not guaranteed, that we don't get to schedule our crisis, and that prevention, vigilance, and checkups, they really matter. If I hadn't gone in for that PSA test, if I'd brushed it off, I wouldn't even know there was something to watch. And maybe that story would end differently later down the road. So if you've been putting off your own checkups, let this be your little nudge. Don't wait. Don't assume. Take the test. I'll keep you updated. My next video about this topic will be after my next PSA check in about 6 months. Between now and then, I'm going to be talking about the practical side of this, what the appointments are like, how you manage the stress, what questions to ask, and how it affects not just you, but everyone around you. If you want me to cover specific things about this, the tests, timelines, costs, or how family reacted, tell me in the comments and I'll be glad to answer. But hey, thanks so much for being here. Seriously, the support matters. It's easy to feel alone when you're facing the unknown. But knowing other people are listening, watching, and maybe even learning from my experience, that makes this worth sharing. And remember, I'm sharing my experience only, not medical advice, because I'm not a doctor. I'm just a guy who went through the process and wants to shine a light on what it's really like. If you've been through this, I'd love it if you could share one tip in the comments. You never know who you might help. And if you want updates, subscribe, because I'll answer the most questions in one of my upcoming videos. Thanks for the support.